This video is brought to you by Incogni. Hello Internet, Seth Skorkowski, and it has been a long time since I did one of my player types list videos, a couple years really, and I figured it was time I could maybe get away with doing another. But instead of it being about, bad players, like the 5 worst players, the 5 most awful players that ever existed, or anything like that, none of these are actual terrible things that are going to break up a group or cause any real issues. They're just things that personally just drive me nuts. Honestly, much of this is about my own group. I love them. Some of them have been playing with me for many years now, and they are my closest and dearest friends, but there are times that are just, whew. And I'm sure that my own longtime players that are going to watch this are going to recognize each and every one of these as far as who it is that I'm referring to. And if any of my long-term players do not recognize who it is that I'm talking about, it's you. We've talked about this, but you never seem to remember, but it's you. Now, to be clear, these are not character traits. They're player traits, meaning that this is not roleplay. This is what those players do no matter what character it is they're playing or whatever system it is they're playing. Now, some of them could be fun character traits, honestly, but characters are temporary. These are really, really exhausting things, however, when it's the player that's doing it themselves. Okay, intros out of the way, let's get started with number 1, the Copper Thief. Copper thieves are obsessively focused on money, to the point that they collect every rusty dagger off every dead goblin, strip every stick of furniture and light fixture and minimally valuable item from the dungeon, haul it all back to town in order to sell it. I have run campaigns where the player characters are meant to be poor, and every copper and brass piece was sacred. But apart from the very opening of a campaign where they might be poor at the very start, at the very first adventure, or even those longer-term campaigns where being broke is part of the ongoing running theme of that, imaginary money in RPGs just bores me to tears. Outside of a significant cost or special circumstances, I usually ignore money altogether. I'm not going to nickel and dime every basic hotel room, cab ride, dinner, pack of cigarettes that they buy. And one of the reasons that I love the credit rating mechanic in Call of Cthulhu is it allows us just to ignore the small amounts of money and just focus on the big expenses. So while I totally get the idea of gathering trophies, maybe that awesome chandelier that the bad guy had hanging in their evil lair, I'm going ahead and keeping that because that was really cool. Hauling a wagon load of scrap armor and doorknobs back to town in order to haggle the sales price of all that is a completely different matter to me. It soaks up a bunch of time, gives minimal reward, and it's just exhausting, especially in games where money isn't that big of an issue in the first place. I found this most prevalent in players who gravitate to video games where scavenging is a big focus, and they gleefully strip out every root and beer bottle and shiny rock that's on the world map, and that is very fun to do in a video game where you can spend hours and hours alone gathering ore. But in a group game where we're saving the world from evil cults and ruthless villains and performing daring heroics, copper thieves that are collecting just scraps for nickels, that just bores the hell out of me. Now, speaking of thieves, what I really hate are identity thieves, which brings us to today's sponsor, Incogni. Right now, data brokers are collecting your information, gathering your name, address, date of birth, buying habits, social security number, everything they can, and selling it to criminals, identity thieves, scammers, and even stalkers. Before I started my channel, I spent several years working in banking and finance, so I got to see a lot of people whose identities had been stolen or loans taken out in their name, or they simply had their accounts drained, and all the hurdles that they had to jump through in order to get all that cleared up. So I had a front row seat to all that stuff, so I don't want to go through that myself. Now, while laws about data brokers that they have to remove any information from their database if you request it, those are in effect, the bad news is that there are hundreds of these data brokers out there, making it impossible for anyone to just contact them all, let alone follow up with them to make sure that they do remove your information. And that's where Incogni comes in. You simply make an account, give them permission to act on your behalf, then sit back as they go after brokers with your information and make them remove it, and follow up with them to make sure that they do. So to help keep your data away from scammers and identity thieves and to cut down on all your spam and robocalls, just hit the link below and use the code SETHSCORE to get 60% off an annual plan with Incogni and let them do all that hard work for you. Okay, now back to the video with number 2, the Handout Bandit. Anyone who watches a few of my scenario reviews knows that I am a big fan of player handouts. Possibly too big of a fan of player handouts, but this video is not about my faults, it's about player faults, and in this case, what they do to my beautiful handouts. Searching the Corpo's office, the 3 of you find a handwritten note tucked inside one of the journals. Huh, sweet. As the name implies, Handout Bandits steal handouts, be them maps or clues or whatever else. No handout is safe from them. Before he died, the victim wrote the word raptor on the floor in his own blood. Wasn't there something about a raptor earlier? Yeah, it was in that article we found. You got that handout? No, and I don't see it on the table anywhere. Yeah, I ain't got it here. Todd, do you have it? I don't know where it is. Did it fall on the floor somewhere? I don't even think I had a chance to read it myself. Seth, do you still have it? No, I gave it to you guys. Todd, are you sure you don't have it? I don't have it. Could you double check for us? Dude, I said I don't know where it is. It's don't know how that got there. Handout bandits come in several forms. There's the type who just refuses to share the handouts, thinking that they're personally theirs because their character made the successful die roll, or that player was the first to grab the handout off the table when the dungeon master threw it out there. But most don't mean to steal the handouts. They might tuck it in their book or their folder without thinking about it, or just tuck it away for safekeeping so it doesn't get lost, or his stuff is getting moved around the table like we're clearing the board for something like that. Either good intention or no intention, but just terrible memory. Now this can be made worse in a mystery or investigative adventure, especially when the player ends up missing the next session and they're the one that's got the handout that was given out to them. We used to have a guy who regularly had to miss a lot of sessions. Family, work, he had a lot of stuff going on and he had to miss it. Life gets in the way, no big deal, but he was really open about that when he joined, so we all knew that coming in. However, he was also notorious for stealing all the handouts, just gathering them up and sticking them in his binder and keeping them, even though we all knew he only had about a 60% chance of making it to the next session. He was going to grab those handouts off the table if you gave him half a second to. Now, actually, our group, we have a game journal that we keep all the handouts in, and this thing doesn't ever leave my house, so we've always got anything that's in there available for the next session, and that was great. However, if you took your eyes off those handouts for a moment, he was going to grab them and stick them in his folder, and we just had to cross our fingers and hope that he was going to make it to the next game. Number 3, the numbers thrower. And I hit. Great. What's my damage? 15. Okay, 15 points of damage. No, that was the 2 hit. Oh, okay, then what is the damage? 12. Okay, 12 points of damage. Plus 7, because I got 7 above 8. Oh, so 7 more points. Oh, and I forgot my aiming bonus of plus 2, so that 15 should have been a 17, making it a plus 9. So 9 more? No, the plus 7 should have been a plus 9 because I got a 17 instead of a 15, which is 9 above 8, so, plus 2. So 2 more damage from what I've already put. Yeah. Okay. Okay, dweebles, it's now... Hold on, we're not done yet. So I had specialty sabot rounds that were loaded on my rifle, and those are armor piercing at ×3 for each damage dice, which in my case is 4. So 4 times 3 is 12, so I get to ignore 12 points of armor. Okay, so 12 points that would have gone to armor was actually armor piercing, so we should put that over to damage. Got it. Okay. And 12 more. Perfect. Okay, dweebles, it's now your turn. However, the sabot rounds also reduce damage by 1 point per die. In my case, 4, so -4. -4 more damage. -4 from the damage that I did. So some of this damage you didn't do. Now, some games out there, just certain combinations of character abilities and specialized equipment can make for a lot of number crunching during a game. The Game Master is trying to get through all of this in a turn as fast as possible in order to get from one player to the next player and keep everything moving quickly and hope nobody gets bored and nobody forgets what's going on. So when the Game Master asks what the damage is, give the final number to them. Don't stagger it out with each declaration sounding like it was the final one. Or just throwing out a tsunami of extra numbers. Either take a moment to do the math and give the Game Master the final number, or if you do need help calculating it, you just make it obvious that you're not finished once you start telling them what numbers there are, and we can calculate all that stuff together, and then the Game Master can apply that one time. Remember, the Game Master is also doing subtraction from whatever the bad guy's armor or hit points is, right? So they're actually doing more math on top of whatever numbers are getting thrown at them, so they've already got a bunch of figures going on through their heads, so please don't make it more confusing for them. I am begging you here. I am terrible at math. Please don't make this harder for me. Great. What's my damage? Okay, hold on. Okay. 17 points of damage at armor piercing 12. Okay, perfect. Okay, dweebles, it's now your turn. What do you do? Number 4, the conspiracy theorist. A lot of games, especially investigative adventures, involve the players piecing together clues and figuring out the nature of their enemy or the plot. Now, sometimes the players are going to make some incorrect assumptions, only to discover that they're mistakes as new evidence emerges. Conspiracy theorist players, however, that is a different matter entirely. Searching the crime scene at the museum, you find a little bit of blood on the glass of the broken display. They must have cut themselves when they stole the jade idol. Okay, so we found a woman's footprint in the mud outside that jimmied window that somebody used to get inside. And the security guard said that he saw one person that had long blonde hair right before a second person snuck up behind him and clubbed him in the back of the head. So there's got to be at least 2 of them at working that night. And one of them's probably going to have a cut on their hand that could give them away. Wasn't Professor Dunmar's daughter a blonde? Yeah, she was. And her fiancé was suspected of burglary right before he died under mysterious circumstances. Wasn't her. He was a security guard, Jack O'Connor. He didn't have any cuts on his hand, and somebody clearly tried to brain him. Misdirection, my friends. He just planted some evidence and told us his story. And then he bashed in the back of his own head? He must have been betrayed by a partner, possibly a brother, and got in deep with the Chicago mob. Chicago? Brother, we're in Massachusetts. That's a long way from here. And do they even have a brother? And he's not going to admit to it either, so we have got to get to Chicago to get some answers. Conspiracy theorists find links or they make up clues that just aren't there, often to support some sort of predetermined theory that they have, which may or may not make the least bit of sense. And any evidence that they discover to the contrary is just simply written off as misdirection or somehow confirms the player's wild claim in their mind, which results in a very wildly convoluted and overcomplicated plots. This wastes a ton of time and can cause a lot of frustration as all the players are debating amongst themselves. And a popular sentiment that I found online is that game masters should change the adventure up to make it where the conspiracy theorist's plan and what their idea was right, that they had the correct solution all along. And then that player can feel clever for solving it, knowing what the answer is. And yeah, that might sound really nice in theory, but it's possibly undermining the rest of the group who was actually following the clues, and it also implies that the conspiracy theorist's solution was remotely logical in some way and not just chopped full of gaping holes that a child could have seen through. This can be made a lot worse if the same player also happens to be number 1, the Unqualified Expert. These are players who speak with authority on matters that they know nothing about. Instead of asking the game master or referencing the book, they present their claim with absolute conviction. After making it through the mountain pass, you finally reach the town of Martall. Sweet, now I'm going to find myself a blacksmith to get my helmet fixed. There's no blacksmith in this town. You're going to have to wait until we get to the city in order to get that fixed. Damn. Well, I guess we'll just pass on through. As you're passing through the town, a clanging of an anvil draws your attention to a blacksmith. Oh, they do have one then. Yeah, they've got one here. Oh, well, I didn't think there'd be one. Sometimes it's about the game world. Other times they make incorrect assumptions and share those with the rest of the table about how the game mechanics work. Mike's bullet catches the monster, driving it a little bit further back towards the cliff's edge, but then the hole closes before your eyes. Maybe I could shove it off the cliff. It's too large to attempt to shove on it. Damn. Well, in that case, I could, it's not too large to attempt to shove. You can attempt that. Oh, well, I thought it was. The problem with these players isn't just that they make incorrect assumptions. I make incorrect assumptions all the time. It's one of my superpowers. But it's their declaration of them as indisputable fact with this authority to the rest of the group. And in a way, it sounds like it was just an established truth that everybody else at the table should have known, so therefore they believe them when they say that. So while yes, the other players around the table should question why the unqualified expert believes this, as often as not, they just accept this confident declaration as being true. So to those players out there that do this, please, instead of just declaring something as 100% established fact, maybe add the clause of I think, or my character believes, or simply ask, is there a blacksmith in this town? Sometimes, like in those example skits, I can correct the declaration around the table to the rest of the players, but other times I can't correct them, either because it would be a spoiler if I do, because if I correct them it's giving away something, or I just simply missed it when they did that, like I was talking to somebody else, or I went to the bathroom, or maybe they just whispered it to each other. Or in those cases where I am able to correct them to the rest of the players, the unqualified experts claim, the damage has already been done, and now that incorrect information is now firmly lodged lodged in everybody's brain and is going to come back to haunt them later on because they now believe something that they now know isn't true, but it's kind of lodged on their brain as, oh yeah, I guess I do remember that being true. So just please, guys, if you are going to be making assumptions, don't declare them as absolute truths to everybody. My job is to make the game challenging already, so there's no need to help me out by making it more challenging for yourself and for everybody else at the table. Now, as I said, none of these are terrible deal breakers for me. And if these were just simply character roleplay instead of player habits, I could handle it. In small doses, I could handle it. But man, they just drive me nuts. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see some more of our stuff, such as game reviews or how-tos, just hit that subscribe button. And a huge thank you to Unqualified for sponsoring this video. Make sure you hit them up at the link below. Till next time, amigos, stay awesome. Okay, man, I gotta know, where did that whole thing with the Chicago mob come from? Because I've been thinking about it, trying to piece it together, and I still can't figure that out. I don't know, dude. It didn't make any sense at all to me, but Dweebles is the one pushing for it. That guy gets lost on some rabbit holes.